Dropped one, we discovered.
All right, and this is the one.
Take this.
The last three digits are 366.
YouTube generates.
Yeah. 366. Mr. Roman.
Go down more. Yeah. Show.
So John, you got gas money.
You want to take a bio break or should we move into our get to know me session? That's get to know me. All right.
Greg's like, okay, I'll take it, but come on.
So,
Yeah.
I got to take off Lily and pick up my wife.
okay, we're gonna get to know John first. Again, there's no pressure. You don't,
That is good.
but I think not everybody knows everybody, and yeah. So if you want to, stand up here, we'll send you this way, and we'll give you some.
And Ben showed up. Ben's.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
Ben's here as well. All right, John.
All right, so well, I see you kind of leading us by the nose here. My name is John. Last name is Ceccarelli. I don't expect anybody's going to remember that. My call sign is N2XE. I am an extra class, and I've been licensed since 1990. Now let's see, how did I get started in ham radio? I was working for IBM at the time. I was an electrical engineer, and I was doing mostly digital electronics. We would do integrated circuit development and characterization, all on the digital domain. And I just kind of got interested in RF. I'm not sure how or what the spark was, but I was looking to move into a position where I could do RF engineering. And of course, the powers that be, well, what's your experience? Are you a ham? I said, no, but that sounds like a good idea. So I studied to be a ham. Back then, there was a novice class that you had to go through first. So you had to pass 5 word a minute code test. And I studied and studied that, and I was able to get through the first test, and then there was no internet back then, so you had to wait for your license to show up in the mail. It came on a Friday, and on a Saturday, I went to a testing session to get my technician license. I really was interested in doing 2 meters, which you couldn't do with a novice license. So I took the test, I passed. And they said, you want to take the general? It doesn't cost you anything. I said, well, I didn't study for it, but okay. So I took that, I passed. He says, you want to take the advanced test? I said, I didn't study for that either. And a lot of this stuff, you can kind of guess the regulatory stuff, and being an electrical engineer is not that hard. So I passed the advanced test. He says, you want to take the extra? And I said, no. Now I got to get my code speed up to 13 words a minute to make it, to make these license classes valid. CW is the furthest thing in my desire list. I think I took that Morse code test 3 times, failed, and I finally passed it on the question. You could either do a solid minute of copy or answer the 10 questions, and I didn't have a good solid minute of copy, but I answered the question, so that's how I got it. And then after that, I was hooked on CW, so I was almost exclusively CW from then on, not voice. So let's see. So now I answered my favorite operating modes. Bands, I like 80, 40, and 20. Probably between 40 and 20, depending on the time. But those are probably my favorites. Most memorable contact I've ever made. Probably doing a satellite contact with those QHA antennas that I just gave Christian it was a AO51 satellite. So I was shocked that a handheld transceiver could communicate with satellites, but it wasn't that difficult. What sort of career? Well, like I said, I was started as a digital IC engineer with IBM. Got into RF engineering, did GPS receiver development with IBM. Then I went to Lockheed Martin. I was an RF engineer over there, and I am currently retired. Best, worst, most interesting game experience. I don't know.
No, you don't have to.
I don't know if I've got
if it doesn't work for you, move up, move you get.
What would you like to learn more about? The equation that Haley asked me about before is like e to the 2x equals cosine x. And there is only one answer to that question. That only works for 0. Everything else, they're not equal because you got an exponential against something that goes between 1 plus 1 and minus 1. But I like,
I
I'll tell
graphed
you,
it earlier though.
I do like I like the kinds of things that she gets interested in, throws out there on here, because now I got to think.
Yeah.
And I haven't thought in a long, so that's, if you have a vanity call sign, I do, N2XE is a vanity call sign. I was originally, licensed as KC4TXR, which I thought was a pretty cool call sign, but when you're, when you're contesting in CW, a 1x2 is a lot more efficient. So I was looking, I liked the X that was in my call. So I just searched around and I came across this call sign N2XE and said, okay, I'm gonna get that one. So that's how it happened. And what would you like to teach, coach, or mentor others? I've done a lot of that actually. We used to teach DF direction finding with I think a lot of you heard my Project Blue Horizon experience, but I used to teach how to direction find using RF, which is fun because a lot of times, like, things happen.
Yes,
You
they
lose
do.
your GPS receiver and you might have some other transmitter on the payload somewhere out there in the woods, and to know how to find that using RF direction finding is pretty fun. But I've taught all sorts of stuff related to amateur radio over the years. So that's pretty much my story.
Well, thanks, Jen. Thank you for sharing.
Who is this that was just speaking?
I'm sorry, what?
Who is this that was just speaking?
That was John Ceccarelli, N2XE.
Okay, I worked at IBM, or maybe at the same time. I may have known you.
Were you in Owego?
No, I was at
John
Endicott,
was in Owego.
but I sort of remember Ceccarelli.
Well, I started in Owego, then promptly moved to Manassas, Virginia, then the Hudson Valley between Fishkill and Poughkeepsie. When I retired from IBM, I came back to Owego to work for Lockheed. So,
Okay,
I wish I could stick around. Got to pick up my wife. She's at a meeting in Appalachian, and she's probably waiting for me right now. But I'll watch the recording and
All right.
get everybody else's story. So thanks very much.
Thanks, John. All right. Just to say, John's been a hand for a while. He's done a lot of stuff. So don't feel like you have to.
Wow.
But anyway,
Tough act to
who'd
follow.
like to go next?
I'll start it off. Greg Shepard, KE2, CAV Endicott. 2023, October I got it. I retired in August. My wife said I had to find something to do. That was a mistake. I live in Endicott. I got interested in ham radio back in the 1980s when I took electrical communication at SUNY Morrisville, the Ag and Tech School. But life was too busy, so I never got it until I retired. Favorite bands are single sideband and 2 meter. Most memorable contact. Well, KB2 JBM, my brother, he's been a ham for a while. In 2019, we got Brazil in my driveway with an alpha antenna on a military whip. But I tried duplicating that for field day and it crashed. So that was my worst experience. Let's see here. I'm retired. I was a test engineer in multiple places. The last place was Amatech. They made equipment for aircraft. If I had to add a piece of equipment, I'm actually doing that now. I'm getting a 710 AESS so I can have one rig for POTA and not tear down my station. Anything about radios, teach and coach, mentor. And yes, I'm a Air Albans. Keep it short.
Okay, well, I guess I'm next in line. Okay. Basically, I started out, my dad was in radio and TV repair back in the early fifties, so I kind of grew up with cords and wires and all that stuff. Back in the early years, used to do a lot of shortwave listening and what have you, but the idea of the code never interested me, and the price of equipment at that time, I stayed away from it. But then in '72, I bought a scanner and had a tunable part on it by accident. I tuned across and I heard these guys talking. They were hymns. And it was VHF. And got some names and what have you, and called the fellow up. He had the call sign WB2LEI. He happened to be the trustee of the 8.2 repeater. The 8.2 repeater had gone on the air just a few months before that, and I picked it up on an image on the radio. So I talked to them, listened to them each night, and what have you. So he invited me to a repeater meeting, and I had just about perfect attendance for the rest of the time with the repeater group doing that. So that's how I got into ham radio, mainly VHF. And then when he and others drifted away from it or moved out of town, I kind of inherited the repeater stuff. So take care of that, and public service, emergency communications, repeaters and what have you. That's the main thing. I like on the HF stuff, 40, 20, and 15, or 40 and 20, 17 meters, some on that. But I love antennas. I love playing with antennas, make them work, and what have you there. So that pretty much sums it up for me. I guess we know.
You just continue on?
Well, Stan Sterling, KE2BON. I'm in the technician group. I got my license as technician 2 years ago during field day. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so, yeah.
That's when you yelled at me because the guy yelling.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, all right.
I learned how to actually go on the radio. He heard me out here and I sounded really mean.
She made the contact, though.
That's it. I work at NYSEG Energy
Yeah.
Services, and I really enjoy my job. I work with a lot of contractors. Interest with the ham radio, I figured that with my job, this would actually roll in for like radio assistance and all that stuff. And it hasn't happened yet, but like someday. This got me into the whole bit. I never even heard of ham radio until we started coming here. My interests: fishing, hiking, camping, kayaking. Grew up on a farm. I love the horse stories, and I do miss my horses, but
Stay away from spillways.
and yeah. Recent injury fishing, the spillway up in what you fell on the rocks, and here we are. So yeah, that's about it. There you go.
All right, John from Fort Crane, W12R, and I'm an extra class and how long licensed? Oh, 3 years. I'm a newbie with an extra, so I basically tested. It's funny, I didn't know anything about this club, and I tested in Norwich, I tested in Utica, I tested in, was it Leon? No, East Syracuse or for my extra. I had no idea you could test here. And so I'm driving around and testing. How I got started. Who was my Elmer? Well, I got started basically I got into shortwave radio, and that kind of piqued my interest. I would hear the hams on single sideband. I actually have a Texan PL 660, I think it might be the radio, and it's shortwave radio, and that's pretty much what piqued my interest in. My Elmer, I YouTube a lot, but basically the club has pretty much been my Elmer.
Mhm.
And one of my favorite operating bands and modes. I don't do CW. Not that I don't want to. I'm at my age, I don't know if I can. And, I like single sideband and VHF and satellites. What was my first radio or the rig that got you hooked on the hobby? Well, my first radio was UV5R, but HF, I have an FT710, and I have a G90 that I do POTA with.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and yeah, and for the base station, I have a couple icons. If you have a vanity call sign, was the story behind it? My first call sign was KE2 AJL, I believe, and then Whiskey Mike 2 Romeo, her son's Mike, and I was like, well, that won't work, and I like the flow of it, so that's how I got my call sign. And what's the most memorable contact? Oh boy, I've made a lot of good ones. Probably the most memorable is made contact, and maybe some of you have aeronautical contacts with Boeing 737 with
Okay.
goes by the name of Khan. I don't know his call sign, but he's on quite a bit. I've reached him on several different bands on, and that's probably my most memorable. Do you like contesting? Yes, I do. Chasing DX, not so much. Rag chewing, yes and no. Peters, yes. I'm always on more than that. Building, some. Vintage radio, no. Portable ops, yes. I love POTA. First on the air is one of my favorite activities. Community service, a little bit with the club I've done, but not too much. What sort of career job student currently? I'm retired. Retired from Frito-Lay. A long career. And I was in the maintenance department there. Impact of ham radio in your life, personal or professional? It's basically been all personal. That didn't help me at all with, I pretty much retired and got into this after. So it didn't do anything. Do you have a favorite place that you'd love to operate from one day? Ooh. Maybe an island or something like that, boat over or something, or something like that. Your history of Southern Tier. I've been in the Southern Tier all my life, pretty much, except for 4 years in the military. That's pretty much the only time I left. Something you would never guess about me. Yeah, you're not going to find it out.
Man, we sleep.
Other hobbies and interests. The guys on the morning net, everybody and gals, they all know a lot of my hobbies. Been to vintage bicycles, and I restore vintage bicycles. I love fly fishing, and I was hoping W2 TJ was here because I just found out he was into fly fishing and fly
Hi, Sus.
fishing.
Big black ties.
I'm in the middle of a seminar here on
And
the ham radio.
biggest antenna success.
Are you, is there anything you wanted to say to me?
Nicholas?
I don't have a big
Okay, because I'm still in the middle of it.
let's
There we
see.
go.
Hot stop tip. Stop tip or something.
What would you like to teach, coach, mentor others? Anybody that wants to know how to do parts on the air, that's a fun thing that I would gladly teach, coach, or whatever. That's about it. That's about all I can think of. I skipped a few, but
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
A lot.
Again. Feel free to answer just whatever questions you want to answer. You don't necessarily have to have an answer for every one of those. Ben, you want to talk about yourself?
Okay, let's see. My name is Ben Sharon, KC2 OTS. I'm an extra class. Let's see, I've been licensed since 2005. I was a freshman in college. Always kind of interested into electronics, my dad was a sales engineer for Hewlett Packard, and I remember him setting up test equipment on like the kitchen counter. So I don't know, I think I was in like fourth grade when he was explaining to me what a spectrum analyzer is. I didn't really get into radio too much, or I kind of knew about amateur radio, but when I got into college, there was a club that met, I went to RIT, and I just went ahead and got licensed. I got my technician back then. I upgraded to general, I think in 2009, and I didn't go to extra until I want to say 2018. I don't really recall. My Elmers back in the day were really just the other people in the club and our advisor. And a lot of them were my age, and that was neat. There were a couple twins who I think went on to work at SpaceX, but they had been doing radio stuff for a while, and they kind of got me started with it. That was probably around where I got my most memorable contact, actually. I don't remember who it was, what the call was, but it was someone in the Virgin Islands, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And that's kind of the neat thing about radio for me, is just the fact that, you know, with nothing else other than what you have, you can go from Rochester, New York to the Virgin Islands and carry out a conversation. So these days, let's see, VHF, UHF, 40 meter, 20 meters, kind of what I'm into. And a lot of that is practical. That's kind of when I got a house, that's what I could easily do antenna wise. I've built a couple of antennas. I enjoy that. I think that's fun. And that's, you know, kind of an easy thing to get going with in the homebrew realm. SSB, I've wanted to do more with packet radio. I've done a little of that. And I also play around with slow scan TV. That's kind of fun. No vanity call sign, same call sign I had from back in the day. Just picking random things. I'm an electrical engineer. I work at Lockheed Martin now. I come from Buffalo originally, and I went to school in Rochester, moved to Schenectady to work at GE, moved down here in 2017 to work at BAE, and then went over to Lockheed when I wanted something a little different. Professionally, a lot of my career has been power. I started working in large battery systems, basically for grid support. And if you do anything with high power, especially, you know, we were working with power converters, you'll learn about EMI, electromagnetic interference. And the key is, it's the same thing as radio, it's just unintentional. So understanding a little bit about RF helps a lot in that case. Southern Tier, moved here in 2017. That's that. Antenna success. I don't know. I'm always amazed. I put together a bunch of those ground plane antennas and they work well. Like to get into building more of my own stuff. Let's see. I don't know. As far as mentoring others, power. If you saw my solar presentation, I'll talk your head off about that. Electronics and networking are kind of my thing. Not presently an ARRL member. Other hobbies. I'm a musician and I volunteer with wolves. So that's about it.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Paul.
Yeah.
KE2 EIJ. I'm an extra class license. Been licensed probably about 2 years now. Unlike John, I did all my testing online, so I didn't drive anywhere for which was a really interesting way of going about getting a license and whatnot. And as a result, I wound up getting the VE testing certification so that I could give back, and I've done some exam proctoring online and whatnot, just, you know, because it was such a good resource for me. I wanted to make sure I gave back to the community. And I think it did help open it up to a lot of people. I think it became popular during COVID, and, you know,
it's good that it's still here, is my opinion. How I got started in ham radio, it's twofold. I was a Boy Scout many years ago, and I got the ham radio merit badge. So I learned about it then and kind of filed it away in my mind. And I was with my son at the BU engineering day, and there was somebody talking about ham radio there, and he had interest, and I told him, well, I'll do it. Yeah. So we went and did it, and I'm kind of a completionist. So as soon as I got the first one, I started studying for the next one, and so on and so forth. I like sideband. I like FT8. I really enjoy looking at propagation and whatnot with FT8 to see how far I get. And I just have a end-fed half-wave antenna out the window, and I'm just shocked how far it gets. And that's one of the most interesting parts to me, is just to see that. And I like the tinkering, the learning, and that's my favorite part of radio. It's just constantly learning something new. And this is a hobby where you can get into all sorts of things. I'd like to do more with the SSTV. I'd like to do satellite stuff. I just haven't gotten there yet. I work. I'm a software engineer. Been doing that too long, and yeah, that's about it.
So I'm Alex, KV2 GNG. I've been interested in ham radio for a few years, but I got licensed about a year ago. General class. My favorite operating modes are SSB, FC4, and FC8. I think 20 meters is my favorite band. I like doing contests.
You certainly got your feet wet.
Yeah.
But because at first we were getting a contact maybe every 45 minutes, and then it's sort of like asymptotically, or it just sort of like with Fibonacci series, and all of a sudden it started rolling along. Eventually said, "I need a break."
Yeah, I guess that's everything.
All right. Well, thanks. Christian?
My name's Christian. My call sign is Kilo Echo 2, India Hotel Juliet, and I've been licensed for a few months now. I think three or 2 months. I can't remember. But I'm a technician so far. I love the hobby. It's super fun. I got started in ham radio probably because of the YouTuber Safer for Parts. He's probably one of the main reasons that I actually wanted to get my license, because of just how cool the actual hobby is and how you can just transmit anything over the air. And I love that fact. All my favorite operating bands and modes are probably just any, because I haven't really dabbled my feet in HF yet. The rig that I started with was a Baofeng AR5RM, which was my first ever radio, and it was a nice radio. I still have the two of them. And my most memorable contact I've made is, I can't remember the rest of the call sign, but the call sign had USA in it. It was a 6 meter FT8 contact during field day. I fought for that contact, and I got it. And that's probably one of my most memorable ones. Or my first 10 meter contact, that one too. That was fun. And I haven't really done much. I haven't really contested or chased DX or anything like that. And the impact of ham radio in my life, I feel like it's been really good, because I volunteer at a food center down in Harpersville. We started a food bank in the school, and I found that having radios to somebody in there, when you go and walk groceries out to somebody's car, you can just radio in for them to open the door instead of having to click the button and wait. I feel like that's done really good, and that's community service I've done. I stay every Thursday, 3 to 5 o'clock, down to school for the food bank. It's super fun. I like it. I'm a student. I don't have a job yet, and I think that's about it. So,
Thank you. We'll go to Gary, and then we'll go to the Zoom, then pick back up. Okay. Gary?
Hi, my name's Gary Dewey, callsign 82GB, from Binghamton. I think I got my license like 2017, maybe 2019, something like that. Always been like a nerd, computer nerd, I guess, kind of thing. Radio just never really clicked for me until like recently. I don't know. I've also been into space kind of stuff. So, I don't know, also like YouTube, right? Watching YouTube and seeing some channels about downloading photos from satellite. So I thought, hey, I'll try that out. So for $20, I got this SDR, right, to plug in my laptop, and I downloaded an image from a weather satellite. It was amazing. And after that, it was all over for me for him. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get into this. It's kind of funny because I'm an introvert, so it's weird for me to talk to people. Which is funny, like this is a funny hobby for that, right? So it's like therapy for me, kind of.
You're not alone in that. I mean, there's a lot of people like that in the hobby.
That's why I love digital. Yeah, digital is fun. Digital is where it's at. I do races on Sunday mornings. There's a net that they do there, and they do digital forums. It's really cool. So you like download this forum over the radio. It's awesome. Most memorable contact is probably, speaking of slow scan, I did some slow scan on HF with somebody years and years ago, and they were from here actually in like Missouri, and they were like, "How's the Oakdale Mall?" And I was like, "Holy crap!" I'm like, "This is
Doesn't
so
exist
cool,
anymore.
right?" And like slow scan, like, "Whoa." And then another memorable moment, probably my worst moment, was it was my first HF rig, and I forgot to turn the power down when I tuned, and the magic smoke came out. I've had good moments though after that. So.
Never seen this be sensitive.
Yeah, I learned how to change the final after that. I learned my lesson. Always turn down the power. Yeah, I guess that's it.
All right.
Right.
All right, so let's see. How about Dennis? Why don't we start with you? You unmute and tell us a little bit of your story there. We don't hear you for some reason. Your mic is.
He's muted.
It's unmuted, but for some reason we're not hearing anything. Don't mute.
Uh-oh.
Test.
Anybody?
Everybody muted.
The right audio output.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I forgot my favorite band.
Is that better?
Oh, there you go. Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay. I've been sitting here so long, the mic timed out. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just point me towards Ford, though, because he's part of this journey here. There he is. So mine's a little bit different format. I didn't know we were going to have questions, so I just wrote it out. My journey kind of started off by necessity. When I first met Ford, we didn't really get along too well. And Linda thought it would be a great idea if I got my license so we would have something in common to do. When I mentioned it to him, I didn't think he believed I was serious. He handed me the study book and basically said, "If you want to, here you go. Challenge accepted." I studied and went to a hamfest, took my technician's test, and walked out with my license. I think that surprised him more than anyone else. The one decision completely changed our relationship. He helped me buy new equipment, get on the air, understand antennas, and learn the hobby. We spend a lot of time now talking radio together, and it gave us something genuinely enjoyed doing together. Ham radio has become more than a hobby. It has become something that connects the two of us. Then a few years ago, I started watching videos of Parks on the Air. I was amazed at how HF bands had become, and operators are setting up in parks and all over the country, making contacts from their picnic tables, campsites, and back in their vehicles. It looked like a lot of fun and reminded me of enjoying the hobby in the first place. When I first got my technician license, the bands were dead. I sat there for hours on Ford's radio trying to find an HF station, and there was nothing. I've been building my station, putting together portable equipment, learning digital modes, getting into contests, and now I'm starting to learn CW and working on my extra class. What amazed me is how much the hobby has changed. There's always something new to learn, whether it's FT8, logging software, spotting networks, antennas, and other operating modes. Every time I think I figured it out, I discovered 3 things that I need to learn. So there it is. That's my journey.
All right, hey, Mike Blake, why don't you pick it up?
Thanks, Drew. I joined late. I'm in Albany and we were at my son's, so I didn't prepare anything. But I started my ham career in 1966 when I got my general license up in Buffalo, New York. I was in Jamestown, New York. And my inspiration was my Uncle Pete, who worked at WGR television and radio station. I also worked with the main engineers at WJTN in Jamestown, New York. It was an AM/FM station. And in high school and through my college years, I would come back and work there, making minimum wage, but what a great job. They'd throw you in, you'd do some DJ stuff, but really you were there to take care of the transmitter, so I had to have a second and then a first class license for radio stuff. And it was just a great way, instead of working in the factories where I also worked to make car radios and, big punch press operators and things like that. So I enjoyed it. I liked tinkering with the equipment. That was the main draw for HF. I did HF work mostly, I'll say 81, a couple of times 160 all the way up to 10 meters and then 6 meters once in a while. Very seldom 2-meter stuff. Every once in a while at night we would do 2-meter stuff. Throughout the 60s, 70s, that was my thing. I went to college and took my radio with me, and it was always like, oh, would you like to come up and see my radio? Never a turn on for the women. Trust me. But it was fun. Oh, yeah. Anyway, it was a great thing, and I've enjoyed doing it. I'm sorry I never kept up with it because my 2 kids never really got the bug. My main interest is building the things, and it was fun. I worked at Lockheed Martin for 39 years. I worked in RF test equipment, mostly systems engineering and once in a while postal stuff and whatever. It was a fun job. I had a good time. And now I'm pleased to be associated with Copernic, and I take my inspiration from people like Art Cassiola and Drew and Dr. Nick, who's I also saw is on, which is nice. And that's about it for me.
Well, speaking of Dr. Nick, you want to take on? Nick Gaidash? Yeah,
You forced
got
him
unmuted.
muted. You forced him. Do you have to force unmute him?
Okay,
There you go.
Okay.
I'm here. Yeah, this is Nicholas Gaidash. I have a tech license and I'm planning to upgrade to general. And I worked at Copernic for a long time. And I was also worked for IBM. And hopefully I'll get my general license maybe in the next testing session. Thank you.
All right. Roger, KD2HMB.
Good evening again. I don't have too much to say here. I first learned about ham radio when I was 12 from a man that worked at the school. He showed me his rig, and then we had a lively discussion about whether the Commodore VIC-20 was better than the Timex Sinclair 1000. And when he told me that I needed to learn Morse code to get a license, I thought, well, I don't think this is for me. Which is sad because at 12, I could have learned Morse code in my sleep. I'm sure it's so much easier to learn it then. So then fast forward many years later, a few years ago, I was working at Yes Network on a project, and there was a guy that was one of the other contractors working with me, and he's got a radio, he's listening to some things, and started talking, and he's like, yeah, I got my license. And I said, yeah, I said, I was thinking about it, but you know, I can't do the Morse code. He says, oh, they took that out. You don't need to worry about that anymore. So I finally got around to it the beginning of this year. Got my technician in January, and I guess it was up in Marathon. There was, I knew you guys existed. I knew about Ford because I knew Linda and Dennis. But for whatever reason, I took my technician license at Marathon during their one of their meets that they had in early January. And then I got my general over there where you are in May. So like Dennis, I'm going to start working on my amateur extra, and that's it. I'm enjoying it. I'm trying to get into POTA, but you know, it's just, you just got to keep after it, keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So that's it.
Right. And Alan, DRI.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you'll be good.
Okay. Alan Rahulik here, KB2DRI. I'm in Enwell, New York, and I got back in ham radio back in about 81 or 82 time frame. I don't remember the exact time, but what happens, my dad challenged me to, he says, you know, you ought to try getting your ham license. He says, I got mine. He says, why don't you go ahead and try to do it? He says, I said, well, I got to learn the code. He said, well, you can do it. You got a young mind. And, you know, I was pretty young at that time. And I took up the challenge. On the weekend, I wrote a basic program on my, I think I had a TRS-80 at the time. And or might have had a PC, I can't remember which. But anyway, I wrote basic code to do a little random character generation with the code, and I learned it in a weekend. And I took the test the following week, and he couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it, but I did. I passed 5 words a minute. And later on, I went and finally, probably about 5 years after that, I upgraded to a technician. And the same theory applied to technician in general at the time, but you had 13 words a minute. That was a roadblock for me. So I ended up holding off on that until back in 2017. I think I upgraded. I was working with Joe Majernik at W8QLG. You probably all know him, and we challenged each other to get the general class, and that's what we did. So that was kind of nice. And other than that, when I started my early career, my dad was he worked up at Singer Link, and he also worked in a TV repair shop in Vestal. So of course, he did all the repairs in our TV, which was a black and white. And of course, I was right along with him watching the whole time. So I got into soldering and all that stuff. I built a power supply using a 5U4 vacuum tube, and you know, generate 380 volts. There's a kid, you know, playing with high voltage. It's kind of fun. I didn't get shocked. Fortunately, I practiced the safety my dad taught me. And well, then I ended up in working for IBM. 1977, I started there and got into Power Group in 1981. Did some power supply design using microcontrollers. I was doing the digital part of it. I did a couple, power supply designs, a flyback and a push-pull regulator. And then I got into IT, and then it was my rest of my career for IT. So anyway, that's about it for me. I'll turn it back to the next person.
All right, we'll just continue on, Bob.
Bob Mess, WS2U. I bounced between Binghamton and Susquehanna. First licensed in 85, got interested when I was 12, which was 1960, and just a short 25 years later, I got my license. Favorite band is whichever one is open. Favorite mode, I like to talk, so microphones are my friend. Most memorable contact probably was, I was rag chewing with a guy in Germany who said, well, I have to get going, Bob. I've got a 3-hour drive to visit my mother in Kiel. which is where my great grandfather came from. I asked him if he would look in the phone book and see if there were any messes left. And a few days later, I got a QSL card and a page from the phone book. Even though I don't remember his call sign, I remember the contact. As far as what I do, I like giving the exams with these guys. My last career was IT person at BU, which these two guys I worked with. And as far as what I teach FSL.
What is that?
Flirting as a second language.
Somebody had.
Sorry. And every year when we had international students come in to welcome them, I would say that, and somebody would always say, "Why do I have to learn French?" And I would answer just like it did for you. And the next day, I would have 4 or 5 guys show up at my office who had the first lesson. So that wraps it up for me.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Jim Lawson. I'm from Binghamton, currently live in Binghamton, call sign's W2UO. I was originally licensed in 2002 as KC2JEB. I wanted to be licensed earlier than that, but I could not tackle the code. So it's funny, a lot of people said it was easier to learn when you're a kid. I would strongly disagree. It was darn near impossible. See, how did I get started in ham radio? I was kind of born into it. My dad's a ham, N2NFS, and that was all the people he would hang around were hams. Like, I don't remember a time I didn't know Ford. That's, you know. So he was a TV repair. Well, he was a TV repairman. I don't mean to talk about him in past tense like he's not around, but he did TV repair when I was a kid. Had a shop in the basement, and I just had free run of the shop. So I mean, as a little kid building crystal radios and things like that, I got interested in electronics. And I remember still one day I told him, yeah, I think I really want to get my ham license. I don't think I've ever seen him any happier. So but it was still a couple of years because I couldn't learn code, and then they dropped the requirement, and then I got my tech license. How did I get started? What are my favorite operating? I really like 40 meters. And ironically, I am almost exclusively Morse code at this point. I do all CW. Well, I had a brief period of inactivity, got married, tried to get the career underway, and I came back into the hobby and had an interaction with an old timer. We were on a family vacation. Had my little Yaesu FT818 that I use for satellite work, and I'm trying to work with QRP sideband, and I'm just not getting anywhere. They told me, you got to pull out the code key. You're never going to get out in these conditions. So I started learning, and it took me about 1.5 years, and now it's really all I want to do. Yeah, I really like 40 meters. Recently, I'm kind of turning my attention to 630. That's kind of a whole challenge. So winding a big variometer. I recently got ripped off on eBay over some copper tubing, trying to get a good deal. So that's coming. Most memorable contact I've ever made is definitely my first 10 satellite contacts. I had a couple old clunker ICOM dual banders stacked on top of each other. Like, one didn't do 70 centimeters, the other kind of did both poorly. Tape measure beam and a mag mount on the side of a tractor. And I thanked the first guy because I managed to get in. I thanked the first guy for my first satellite contact, and 9 more people jumped on me. I couldn't even, it was the first time I've ever been in a pileup. It was kind of crazy. I don't really care for contesting. It is kind of fun. I can get into field day. I don't get on VHF very much anymore, but I enjoy repeaters. I really like building. Never built anything too complex, mostly just like free running oscillators, regens, direct conversion receivers, stuff like that. I've heard a couple other people say that they want to build. Maybe we should do like a club project. That'd be kind of fun. Vintage radio, definitely. I've got a couple of big Hammerlins that I went through that are a lot of fun. I've got a Viking 2 that's a really good time. Doesn't modulate well. I don't use the phone anyway, so it's just a CW rig and a couple of novice rigs that are fun to play with. I do like portable and mobile. POTA is a blast. I've kind of dragged my dad into that, but I forced him to pick up a code key, and I don't know if he's too wild about that, but also mobile CW, best way to learn to head copy, hands down. Career, I work for Broome County Transit. I'm a technician. I work on the hybrid electric and fully electric buses mostly. It's a lot of fun, and I think what got me there has to do a lot with amateur radio, is the informal electronics education I picked up as a kid. I used to do automotive, but it gave me an edge where not a lot of people had that background. So even though I was never formally educated in it, it definitely helped me get ahead. Best, worst, most interesting ham experience? I don't know. It's never been a bad ham experience. I've blown up a lot of things, but other than that, I think that's about it.
That was pretty cool to hear.
Well, if I get everything together and I kind of figure the things out, which by the way, it is like the first application I've ever had for all that math that you had to learn in your extra. Like, oh, this is what this is all about. Yeah, it'd be fun to put together a presentation.
All right, Alan.
So Alan Wing, Vestal K2 FFC, general class about 2 years, I think. Bob Mess is actually the one kind of got me involved. I mean, he got with a lot of prodding, actually. I probably should have done it sooner than now, but still really, at this point, really more listening than talking, mostly on VHF, UHF. Current career is Wi-Fi engineer for the university campus. So RF in a completely different realm. And other hobbies outside of radio and IT and tech in general. I spent a lot of time doing backstage work for theaters, so lighting and sound there. So RF again, in the sense of frequency coordination for microphones. Probably I'd like to eventually get into some more maybe tinkering around and building. I used to do a lot of electronics products as a kid. And kind of actually have to get on the air still. So
All right, nice.
Steve McEwen, I got my novice license in 71 and my advanced in 72. And I had a lot of trouble learning the 5-word-a-minute code to get my novice license, and then it got easier after that. But my original call was WA2CLG, and then I got my extra in 82, and then that's when I got KU20. And I didn't, it's not a vanity, it was the call God gave me, kind of, so to speak. So, but anyway, mostly I was inactive when I first started out going to college. I wanted to be an electrical engineer because I was a ham radio operator, I figured. But I ended up changing into mechanical engineering. So then I retired from BAE Systems as mechanical engineer in 2020. And I was inactive for a really long time with the kids. And then when I kind of became an empty nester, I kind of got back into ham radio. And then the whole POTA thing is mostly hunting, but some activating. It's really fun doing that. So I don't know why, but it's just great either being either hunting places or activating. And I think my most memorable QSO was 3Y0K, which was Bouvet Island, which is the really weird thing is I was going on vacation in Canada and I wanted to register with my call sign. I registered my card, to say I'm going out of the country, with my credit card. And the drop down just before Canada was Bouvet Island. I thought, what's with that? It's an uninhabited island. I'm sure there's no place you can use a credit card there. So it was pretty weird that was the thing, but anyway, I guess that's my story. But POTA's great.
Hi there, Marvin, K2MV.
I didn't have any relatives who were hams growing up. I didn't have any friends who were hams growing up. Didn't have any classmates who were hams growing up. I learned about ADSB, which is like the plane transponders, that if you listen to them on the ground and you build a receiver, you can sort of build a sort of fake radar view of all the planes that are around. Thought that was really interesting. And I learned that you could sort of roll your own antenna, and you could make one out of cut up coax cable and put it together for a collinear coaxial setup. So I went to Unicorn, I bought a bunch of cable, I started cutting it apart. I didn't have any of the tools to put it together. So I went to my friend, and he saw me doing this while I was reading the directions and putting it together on this floor. And he said, that's kind of what those ham people do. I'm like, what's that? So I started looking at stuff online, and that's how I got into this. So that was back in 2015. And so I got my license, and discovered that the bands were crap on HF. And so I started out doing a lot of digital, because that's what would allow me to make contact. And so I learned a lot about radio that way. But I just sort of crept out from there to other things. And like, there were a lot of things I didn't think I had an interest in, like CW, but eventually, like, I'll try it. And I found something I liked about it, and I started doing that a lot. And that just continues. I just had my first SSTV contact last month. So I learned about that and did it for the first time. Circling back a little bit, in my day job is at Binghamton University doing IT desktop kind of support for the engineering school. So there was actually Bob, similar to what Bob did. And I didn't find Bob until I got my license, after I got my license. But we do every year go to the Engineers Week Community Day, where people such as yourself come by with their kids, and we talk to them about ham radio and try to propagandize them. That's exactly what happened. That's great. Let's see. I'm trying to pass it on a little bit, partly by doing the volunteer examining to do the radio exams for people here. And I'm advising a new student ham radio club that we're spinning up on campus. So I've got a few folks, you might see them later. Once everybody's back from the summer, I'll try to bring them here more too. Let's see, memorable contacts. I think maybe, I don't know if it's the most memorable, but I got into POTA a few months ago, and it's been great. I had my first activation with Steve's help over at Moore Park, not far away. And I was at home, I was hunting a POTA station. It was somebody with a 2 call, but they were down in Florida. And a lot of people have their computer up, and they look people up on QRZ as soon as they, as soon as they get your call sign. He said, "Oh, Vestal. I used to date a girl from Vestal, New York." Yeah, and I said, "Wasn't me, over." So that's my funny contact. And the other thing, one of my hobbies, interests, if you're into anime at all, I volunteer at a big anime convention called Otakon every summer in Washington, D.C. It's in a couple weeks, so I'll be heading out there soon. And I've also done some like studying Japanese separately from that. And so one time, I think it was the CQ Worldwide or CQ WPX sideband, and you get Japanese stations on, and you can get them. It's the right time of day and the right conditions. And I got a hold of a Japanese station that I could get pretty well. And so we had our, contest exchange. And then I slipped in, right at the end, try to be really fast. I gotta go do some of my stuff. And he's like, "Oh!" So it's always fun to just have that little brief connection with somebody, with something that you can share with somebody. So that's my radio story in short. Right. Okay, my name is Mark Daniel, and I'm from Owego, call sign W2GHY. I'm an extra class licensee. I've been licensed since 1974. Got into it because there were 3 of us in junior high school that wanted to get our license, and one guy, his father, W6YQQ, was kind of our Elmer, and he was the one that administered our novice test for us. So we eventually got our general. I think I was still probably in junior high when I got my general. Advanced somewhere along the line during during COVID. I was bored and I said, I'm going to study for my extra. So, and I didn't have to worry about the code at that point, which was always a big hurdle. So I got my extra at the end of COVID. First rig was a Heathkit HW101 that I built. I built quite a few Heathkits. My buddy used to ditch school and build his. So I'd show up and he'd be in his garage soldering away. What else? Vanity call sign, W2GHY. My original call sign was WN6GHY. I thought, well, gee, I'm in New York now. And we've been back here 34 years. And I said, geez, I'd like to have a W2 call, but I like to keep that GHY. So it is kind of tough, though, for CW, but just kind of sentimental value. I worked at Lockheed Martin for 36 years at the Skunk Works, then quit the Skunk Works, went to IBM, or came back here to IBM. And Lockheed bought them, and I worked F-117s and Army SOA as a flight test and system engineer. So that's what work brought me here. Other hobbies and interests. I show dogs in confirmation, and my wife and I also do rally obedience, things like that. I'm a volunteer firefighter and a fire investigator for the county. So that's how we kind of do our community service. What else? I like tinkering with antennas and building antennas, and operating. Yeah, not so much. I'm more interested in the technology side of things and playing around with it. I think that's about it. Impact of ham radio in your life. System engineer, avionics systems. So I think ham radio kind of directed me in that general direction. So. All right. Hey, I'm Art. I live in Candor. My call sign is KE2FJH. I am a technician. I've been licensed almost 2 years. I took the course with you guys, from you guys at the Vestal Fire Department. I got started. My father's electrical engineer. I remember playing a lot with heat kits and stuff when I was younger. And I didn't like Morse code. Matter of fact, when I was in the Scouts, I opted to do semaphore, the flags to get around Morse code, and I was successful. But during the Gulf War in '91, I started getting more interested with shortwave. I was concerned about what was happening around the world, and it's always been on my bucket list, and I just never had the time. But then I finally, when you provide the class, I finally was able to do it. I don't really have a favorite band because I haven't had enough experience yet. My Elmers, I should say, are probably Drew and Keith, and to a degree, Ford and Steve and some of the other members of the club here. Thank you. My first radio that I have is the UV5R that I bought through the club, or you gave me, I guess, for joining the club, right? So, yeah, it's a good deal. So what do I like? I think most thing I'm gonna like is community service. And I think doing the thing with the parks is interesting too, but I haven't had much opportunity yet. So I'm a retired school teacher. I taught for 35 years. I retired in 2008. But I really never retired from teaching because I teach a little bit up here at Copernic. And this is they need me, so it's my 52nd year teaching driver education. So, I'm still doing it.
And he has the gray hair to prove it.
Yeah,
You're not completely gray yet.
I got to, I'm a volunteer fireman and a fire commissioner. I'm an EMT. I serve on pretty much literally 20 different boards and committees. As a matter of fact, that's why you don't usually see me here, because I have a county meeting on the third Wednesday every month. So I don't, when they cancel the meeting, do I get to cover it? Not that you're not important.
Yeah.
I've lived in the Southern Tier since 1975. Originally from New York City, born and raised. Went to college upstate. Met my wife, who was from Pulaski, little farm girl. My first job was in the country in Westchester. When I got married and my wife moved with me in Westchester, she felt she was in the heart of the Bronx. So I picked geographically the area around Owego to find a job and live. And so that's why we're here. We've been here for over 50 years. Something you never guess about me is I took 37th place in the New York City Marathon in 1968. But it was really small then. It wasn't like it is today. I wouldn't even qualify anymore, but back then I did. Other hobbies and interests, I like photography and astronomy, things like that. Any piece of equipment, I'd really like to get a portable radio in my vehicle. This is good, but where I live I'm up high enough, but not that high. And I have I'm in a valley with 2 hills behind me. So it's hard for me to get any reception. So I take that in the car and I do it. And believe it or not, I could hear you guys well into Pennsylvania on 81 with that radio. But you wouldn't hear me. I would like to learn about my general. I'd like to get my general license. I have the book. And I started studying a couple of times, but I just don't have the time. So if you have a class again, that's something that makes me do it. I show up every Saturday and I just go. So that's what I'm hoping for. And I am a member of the ARRL. ARRL. Sorry.
All right, so my name is Alistair Klein, from Little Meadows. I don't know anything about ham radio besides maybe like the truckers you see on TV with the CBs or whatever. Favorite operating bands, I can only name you rock and roll bands. I don't know.
Best answer, Bob.
Thanks. First radio gig, Skip.
Tell us about yourself.
So what brought me here was a friend. He recommended this to me. I was signed up for a basic soldering and circuitry course for a college, and I was the only one that signed up, so they just kind of threw me out. And so this is pretty much me picking up the pieces, trying to find people who are into that stuff, maybe trying to find stuff that could help me with that, and that's really it, man. I don't know anything. A lot of you guys are not speaking English here, so I'm just trying to.
Well, we're speaking English. We'll grow on you.
All right.
Rough, yeah.
Thank you.
Coming to the right place.
Thank you.
My name is Steve, K2YRA. I'm like Alex. I have no idea what you guys are talking about. I'm going to tell you something that you probably don't know about me, but it'll be kind of as a puzzle. It took me about 34 years to get my license. I've been licensed about 40 years. Yeah, about 40 years. My activity kind of goes opposite the sunspot cycle. So when the cycles are bad, I get interested in it. So if you want to know what the cycles are like, see what I'm doing. Brooklyn, Queens, Rockland County, and then Broome County. Been here 3 years. Why did I come here? For the oceanfront property. They lied to me. The line from Casablanca. My grandkids live up here. And one of the things I'd love to do is get them more involved. They're 7 and 9 years old, so a perfect age to get interested. Probably the age where I got interested when I was a kid, way back in shortwave listening and electronics and hooking things up. It's amazing. I never blew up myself, the house, burned it down. I couldn't use the fire department. Survived all that, but always into shortwave radio. First radio Lafayette HE60. All I have left from it is the box, which my mom had used as to store towels in the linen closet. And when they all passed and moved, I said, that's the one thing I want from the house is that box. I don't want the towels, I just want the box. So I always keep an eye out, flea markets, wherever, for an HE60. That was my shortwave radio. The cool thing about shortwave radio, it got me through school being like the social studies expert. I would send a signal report to a station in Ecuador. They'd send me all the information about Ecuador. And that was my report. Okay, I can tell you all about Ecuador. What do you want to know about Ecuador? I love them. So, and Heathkits, I live near a Heathkit store. I'm into, what am I into? Oh, the most interesting contact I made was just recently. To set the scene, I was at Veterans Park, right along the Susquehanna. People are dipping in the water and some is swimming or splashing around as POTA activation. I work the station N5 UDE. N5 UDE, spell it out. Special event station for International Skinny Dip Day. I am definitely going to send them my QSL card with a silk address, stamp envelope, and I talked to the guy, and I didn't even want to. And I'm looking at the people in the river and I'm saying, no. But that was pretty interesting to me. Ham radio helped me in my careers over the years, retail electronics at Radio Shack. I figured, let me try to make back some of the money that I spent there over the years. And why did I start working there? I was there all the time. The guy said, you might as well work here. I said, really? Oh, okay. I mean, you can get paid to, you get work here? Yeah. So it's pretty good. And then today is actually the 30th anniversary when I started at Verizon. And originally in sales, but then more as a solution architect, working on advanced wireless solutions for public safety, utilities, healthcare, a lot of smart people, like a lot of the folks in this room I got to work with and help realize solutions to save lives or improve the quality of life, whatever. So 30. Today's the 30th anniversary. Tomorrow's a special day in my life, and I'll give you a clue. Marvin mentioned Japanese. My youngest son's in Japan. He called me today to wish me happy birthday. Japan is ahead of us. I'm not going to tell you when my birthday is, nor how old I am, but to let you do the math. Favorite place? Oh, not the worst ham experience I've had, but went to Europe 2 years ago, a couple of weeks, guided tour, then Iceland for a while. It was awesome. And I brought a portable radio and Elecraft. It was great. I'm going to do parks on the air all over Europe. Never took the radio out of my bag the whole trip. That was one of my regrets, maybe the only regret. So where would I like to go? I'll go back to Iceland. I don't mind. Love to operate there. Get kids involved, the grandkids more. Art, I ran in the New York City half marathon. I ran from here to maybe where John and Diane are sitting. I was a volunteer at one of the medical stations, I was stationed in Times Square. It was like a movie of the earth had ended. Times Square was deserted. You picture New Year's Eve, 1 million people in Times Square. There was nobody. Me, 2 cops, and the medical team there. And during the break in the action, this was before the runners came. This was maybe like 4 o'clock in the morning. And so I asked one of the paramedics, do me a favor, keep an eye on me. So I literally ran from there to there. So I can say
You ran.
I came in 20,492nd out of the, my worst ham radio experience was getting stuck in the snow on Polar Experience. I figured, I was pulling into a parking lot. I figured, yeah, I can make it. I missed the entrance, got stuck in the snowdrift. Not so bad. I called it. They winched me out. 3 weeks later, I went back to the same place, still snow on the ground. I figured I can do it. I know where it is. Got stuck in the same spot. Fortunately, a different tow truck guy came because I think it was the same one. He would have said, no, I'll see you in the spring. Once was enough. What would I like to do? Parks on the Air. So 2016 was the 100th anniversary of the 100th anniversary, the National Parks System. So it was National Parks on the Air. It was ARRL, had a program only in national parks. And this was the precursor of POTA. So I got into it because it was great. I was living in a development. I've always lived in developments, couldn't put up any kind of antenna. I said, I could go play radio in the great outdoors. It was awesome. It was so much fun. Met so many good people and learned a lot and stayed with it over the years. Again, missing the good cycles. To POTA, I'm the mapping rep for New Jersey for POTA, Wine, New Jersey. I used to live across the street from the New Jersey border, and there was an opening. I said, yeah, I could do it. And it's great because people will suggest, can this become a POTA site? So you really get to understand what goes into what's eligible to become a POTA site, and the research and the mapping and it's pretty cool. So you look at a dot, real quick POTA trivia. If you ever look at the POTA map, you'll see a yellow dot that says that's where, that's the POTA site. People will say, is that where you have to be to operate? The answer is no, because that's just one location. The Appalachian Trail, 2,100 miles long, 14 states, there's one yellow dot. And if everyone who wanted to activate the Appalachian Trail was at that yellow dot, it would be really crowded. Susquehanna River is the Captain John Smith, US 4567, 300 and something miles, one dot. So a little POTA trivia. Alistair, I give you a lot of credit because I've been hearing a lot, the soldering, the building, the kit building, the do-it-yourself. I think that's something as a club we could, maybe there's groups that are more interested in doing things like that. Not everybody, but if you get two people, all of a sudden you have a mob. I think that's a legal definition. I'd like to learn more about satellites and CW. I've forgotten everything I knew about it. Operating activities, field trip. Oh, yeah, maybe we do more field trips. I think the last one we did was Scranton to the station there. It was awesome. And then that great lunch in the Lackawanna building, which was great. I was back thanks to Ed. He turned me on to a great place after the Wilkes-Barre Ham Fest in Scranton. I went to Steamtown. There's a trolley that runs, except the day I was there, they run a special shuttle to the baseball game. So no trolley. But I did see the sister or the brother of the big boy train, which is parked there. Identical to the one that, came through this area, is literally parked there. It is big. It is huge. I mean, I got to go up there and, steering wheel or whatever. I think of a steering wheel. Maybe getting involved, you mentioned, Bob, I think mentioned, or a couple of the guys mentioned the Binghamton clubs. Let's get more, with other clubs. Little trivia also. When I lived in Rockland County, I belonged to BARA. Wait a minute, BARA's here. The Binghamton Amateur Radio Association. When I came up here, hey, you should join BARA. Dude, I'm already a member. No, how could you be a member? The Binghamton Amateur Radio Association. This is a much more active group than BARA.
The first one you said Binghamton. You meant Bergen.
Bergen. Oh, they're Bergen. Where am I?
Yeah.
Not Christie anymore.
Yeah, we're big Vestal. How to get the name Vestal. So yeah, stuck in the snow. I think you can figure out the things about me that you may not know. And I really, I'm glad, it's a great group of people, great tradition, and I think a great future also. The more cool stuff we could do together, the more new things, the more old things, put it all together. I think we'll have a lot of fun. And that's all. I get to Vestal.
California, I want to be
I'll just put the mic more this way and so Ed, why don't you?
Okay, I'm at E2W, got my license in 1971. Me and my best friend Mario Giordano, AA2VJ, were like 13 years old, and they had an Explorer post. IBM sponsored an Explorer post for ham radio. So me and him went one evening and knocked on the door, and somebody there looked at us. We were too little and shooed us away. But then this gentleman, Drew's dad, came chasing after us. Wait a minute, get back in here. So that got me started. I got my novice with the Explorer Post WA20YR in 71. That only lasted 3 years. Then my dad had to take me to Philadelphia to the FCC. Luckily, I had an aunt and uncle in Philly, so it was a fun trip. And he dropped me off. I went in and spent the morning and took my general, and even got the commercial at the time, so you could do broadcast. And that was 73. And then in 75, I graduated and went to Auburn University to study electrical engineering and used that commercial ticket. I was from New York, and the campus shut down on the weekends, kind of. And I approached the radio station, the college station. I'm here and I'd like to be on the air on the weekend. And I explained, I've got the certificate, I'm legal to run the transmitter, so I got a job Friday and Saturday night playing requests at WEGL-FM, which was fun and enjoyable. But then I met people that worked at all these commercial stations and found out broadcasting didn't pay a whole lot. They make like minimum wage. They have side gigs that they get into, or you got to move up into the market and get a bigger thing. So I was kind of like, I'll stick to my electrical engineering. And I graduated and then moved back to Endicott, where I grew up, and applied in June at IBM, GE, SingerLink, the 3 companies that were here. July again, August again, September. Finally, the guy at SingerLink, he says, you keep coming by here every month. I have a job I can't fill. It's mechanical. Are you interested? Well, I was electrical. I said, sure, I know all that stuff. So I went to the interview, and the interviewee is Jim Hers. I forget his call sign, but
The A2JQI.
2 minutes into the interview, it came out, oh, you're a ham.
Yeah.
The interview was over. I was on a plant tour. He was introducing me to all of his friends. I didn't know mechanical, so they sent me to Milwaukee School of Engineering for a course so I could learn hydraulics. So I worked there for like 20 years after that, and hydraulics for a couple. Then I went into visual displays, and this was all hardware. But 8 years in, hardware died, and there was only software. And they didn't want to hire me because I was a hardware guy, but actually I was a software guy because the Explorer Post had ham radio. There was another one that did computers, and friends of mine were in that, and I hung out with them, and we used to go over to room and get on the computer. So I knew Fortran programming and that. And I actually did it at Auburn. The first year was at the radio station. That didn't pay, it was volunteer. And the next year I got a job cleaning labs in the physics department. I'm mopping the floor, and a professor's there. He's got his Fortran program all laid out. He's scratching his head. I come by, I wrote down what to do. He looked at me like I had a third eye on the forehead. And he's, oh, sure. Okay, buddy. Well, the next day I'm in there, he's chasing after me. You were right. You were right. So I went, that's the last floor I mopped. The rest of the 3 years I spent doing Fortran programs for the physics department.
Goodwill Hunting.
I was just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then like I said, I moved back here. I kind of digressed there, but moved back here 20 years at Singer Lake. Ham radio in high school, but then went to college. It was more 100% college, 24/7. Didn't have time for it. But then after I moved back here and got a job, I got into BARA and we did stuff. And then I upgraded to extra at that point because that was the thing to do with the club up on Milks Road operating HF and everything. The extra gave you a lot more frequencies. And then that worked for a while, for I want to say maybe 10 years. And then I met my wife and got married in 1994 and had kids. And that sort of took me away from ham radio with my two boys, baseball, wrestling, all that stuff. So we didn't, my sons weren't interested in it, so I didn't push it. We did all that sports stuff and school stuff together. But then about 2022 or so, my kids grew up. Bob gave me a call. Ed, what are you doing? You want to help out with VE testing? And Bob got me back into it, doing the VE testing.
And Ed gave me my novice test. It just turned about.
Way back when. Back in the 80s, I was doing testing and stuff like that. But so after a hiatus, I got back into it with Bob and then later became secretary and ended up doing the newsletter. I don't have a lot of the on the air stuff. I enjoy it. I mostly did CW in my early career, and later in the 80s, we did a lot of contesting for Milks Road. And now I see you're active in it. I like to come up and listen when I can. And other hobbies, when my kids were, well, actually, when I quit smoking in 82, I couldn't go to the bowling alleys anymore, or the bar, so I picked up skating and got involved with hockey. And ended up doing quite a bit with hockey. Started at 35 years old, learning how to skate. But then a couple guys took me under their wing and taught me how to skate. And then I went to Can-Amp summer camps, Loris Dom, and you spend the whole week doing hockey from pros. And they do the adult camp the week before they have all the kids camp to get the bugs out. So I did pretty good and ended up running the ice at the room on Sunday nights, me and another guy, and Thursday or Friday morning playing with the policemen, all recreational hockey. But me and Jim Swag rented the ice Sunday night at Broome when they first put the ice in, and got 20 people to pay $10 and just fun, no checking, no hitting, just people that wanted to play hockey. So that's been my side sport, and coaching the kids when my kids were in it. It's my side thing. That's going to be quick. Thanks.
No?
Okay. All right. Hi. Okay, my name Noah Town Binghamton, call sign KA2BYE. Class license, I'm a technician. How long license? I think it was 2024, I think. Yeah. How do I get started in radio? Okay, years back when I was in Israel, there was like a rich guy that had ham radio. And I was like fascinated. He was talking to different countries, and it was just fascinating listening. And I remember one American said waka waka something. She was like from like south of southern part of United States, and it was like from Japan, from India, from different countries, Australia. So but since he was kind of like rich, he got like higher standard. So I didn't have much money. So And I mean, in general, in Israel, in the time that I grew up, girls weren't really encouraged with the sciences. It was like, oh, you go learn literature, or you go learn do art or do other things. So, so I got more interested in nature. So I volunteered with the Society for Protecting the Nature in Israel, and I learned like archaeology, geology, things like that. It was like fascinating history through trips, hiking trips, and you go and see 2,000 year like archaeology in front of you. It's biblical archaeology since that's what is in Israel. And later on, I also like traveled and went to Turkey and France and Egypt, and I saw archaeology of ancient jewelry and other artifacts. And this is actually my inspiration that I got. Later on, I'm a professional artist. I create things. I have big interesting jewelry. So I make big size jewelry, like not human, but huge size jewelry. And I'm going to have my exhibit actually at Arts Council, Burma Arts Council, at August 7th. So you're welcome to come. And yeah, so back to this. So ham radio. Okay, I came to United States and I took cinema, but then I went to the technical part of the cinema because I was interested in how sound is generated and how vision is done. And I was doing old film machines. I made a loop of a film, and I actually did 12 millimeter. I printed on the computer with transparent, and I hand and I drew different images, sequence of images, and and I was just pulling manually. Because I found 24 old machine from 24 inches for film, and it was just it was kind of clunky how I was doing. I found it in a garage sale, so yeah. So and then I was interested to do a cinema with moving projectors from different 360 degrees. So I find a ball, like a crystal ball that I could put on it like film, and then I was just pull it put it on something that has hole in the middle, and then I will put a wire there, metal thing, and then I would pull the film, but it would go sideways, kind of funny. Yeah, so I had several projectors like this in the lights. So that was my final project in cinema, and a professional really loved that. Yeah, so after this, yeah, I heard about the ham radio, but I never got the chance like at BU, because they were really exclusive part of people that they never associated with others. But then after 2024 sometime, I heard about this and I said, maybe I should just try. And then I got into chat with someone on Facebook I made friend with, and he told me about the ham radio in Broome County, and then gave me the contact. So that's how I started. And no, Elmer, I'm not sure. I know of good friends. Like Ed is a really good friend. Yeah. Steve is a good friend. I mean, people that I meet here. I mean, this is the most important thing here is are the people. Yeah, like everyone could be an encyclopedia in a whole world. And it's interesting. Yeah, everyone there have their own life experience. What was your favorite opera? I like CW. I haven't done much. FM. I have this handheld radio Baofeng. I haven't bought like I said yet. I just didn't have the budget. So my first radio. Well, I started. Oh, I forgot to mention. I started building like from germanium, the crystal AM radio. So those kits. So I got into that and built some. It was powered by my the human power, electricity in your body. So my call sign vanity. I like my call sign. I think it's cool. What was the most memorable contact you made on the air? I guess it's the whole experience of my first QSO. Like I was like really fascinated how people were talking and I mean, I wrote down what to write. I mean, what to say because I didn't know all the words. So, and it was interesting to do. It was my first contest. So, yeah. I mean, first time you always like stays fresh with you. Yeah. You like contesting. I like vintage radio. I like those old ones that you have those big ones that used to be and in the living room and people were turning on. And it's like in times of I don't know First World War, Second World War. And in that time they were using also codes, to avoid the enemy and I mean have messages. So it was a really interesting time. Not easy time though. Okay, what career? Okay, as I mentioned, I do art, but I also I get to join sometimes. At least I used to until 2023. Just go to different lectures at the university that they were sometimes online, sometimes in person. They're talking about it's like usually the PhD students like having a presentation of the engineering school and each time is interesting things, sometimes about neuroscience, sometimes about I don't know, cellular structure or I mean each time something else. So it's pretty cool and got interested in system science engineering. And that's another thing because I was discouraged from learning sciences later on when I was like in my 40s. Suddenly was the MOOC era. It's a massive online courses, and that was like started in 2011, and it's just all those Ivy League universities giving all those university classes, and I said, "Wow, I can do this." So I started taking suddenly linear algebra and fell in love with it. And then I took like robotics, like intro to AI, all those things. And it's just fascinating. My world, the whole world is like open in front of me. Things that I couldn't do for years, suddenly I could. And nobody told me that I cannot. Because I mean, usually when I grew up, just usually the boys used to say, "Oh, you're just a girl, you're not gonna do that," and so it kind of really discouraged.
Not here, that's for sure.
No.
Yeah, you have a better opportunity in your like generation. Yeah. So what did I say? So hobbies. I mean, science is still a huge hobby of mine. I haven't managed to make it a profession, but I combine. I mean, the same way that I see like Leonardo Vinci that did both art and science, because art is basically could be the observer of science into the details, into the small things that you don't really pay attention on a daily basis. Art gave me the opportunity to check those small things. I mean, some people see art as something that they get into, like philosophies and too much heavy thing. For me, it's just I don't have patience for that. I just want to enjoy the fine details of the little things that usually people don't like pay attention to. Um, so that's how it integrates with me. In order to learn how a fish, for example, swims, you gotta learn their movements. You gotta learn the turns, the way. So those things I observe. And I mean, with a camera, you can have like a series of photographs just to learn their turns. The same thing with planets. So yeah.
All right, I think we need to.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Very good.
How we doing? Randy? Oh, Linda, you say hello?
Yeah.
Right. She made it. There
Hello.
we go. Hey there.
You on the air yet?
No, I'll talk about that in a minute. This is great. This is really a wonderful thing you guys are doing.
No.
And I'm sorry I wasn't here for the earlier part.
No worries, no worries. All right, yeah, Randy, go ahead.
All right. Hello, everybody. Randy Bundle, Lisle, New York, mechanical engineer by trade. I got into ham radio recently, late 2024. Didn't know a thing about it, but I got in it because I was desperate. I was desperate to find something in the science and tech field that I could get this one involved in. And I figured the only shot I had was to try to figure out if we could stretch a wire out and make a contact. And I was hoping to get into Pennsylvania. That was the goal. And so we started Google searching, and we bought a HF rig and started studying, got a license. And then I'll let this one tell you. I'll let Haley tell you the rest of the story. But now I'm holding on for dear life, trying to keep up with her. So that's my story. Done good. Yeah.
Watch what you wish for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we'll go to then up to Linda.
Okay. I'm Haley, KE2EBX. I have my extra license. He got his extra, so I was like, okay, you can't have like a level higher than me. So I had to get mine too. But yeah, like he said, I got licensed. We like studied together. So we got licensed at basically the same time, in like December of 2024. And since then, like we just started with HF, which we didn't know anything about VHF. So we just got an HF rig and started getting on the air with it. But my favorite bands, I really like 40 meters. It's great. I also really like 2 meters. now that I found the 2 meter community, I was actually out doing POTA, and I talked to Ford, he called me, and he told me that I need to start doing VHF. And so I was like, okay. And he told me about the repeaters. So then we got some Baofangs and started doing the net. And so 2 meters is really great. And I think my favorite contact, I have a youth net that I check into. We do it through Echolink. So I know a lot of other kids that do ham radio through that. And I was working Kids Day, and I was just scrolling, and I heard a voice. And I was like, I recognize that voice, because I know a kid, he's 8 years old, and he checks into the youth net that I check into. And he has his extra license, actually, which is pretty cool. But he was calling, and so I was like, okay. So I called him. I didn't actually get his call sign, but I was like, hi, Adam. It's Haley from Yacht. Can I have your call sign? Just to make sure it was actually him. But it was. I knew it was. So I think that was my favorite contact that I've ever had, because that was really fun. But I always like when I meet other kids on HF. That's really fun, especially when I know them from other places, and then we finally get to make an HF contact. So my most interesting experience with ham radio, I was down at a summer camp past month, right? It was like probably a month ago now. But we were learning about satellite operations. And so we decided we were going to like do a satellite contact kind of thing, but we were using simplex. So all the kids from the camp were trying to make as many contacts as possible, but we only had one frequency because it was like supposed to be simulating a satellite. And that was kind of crazy because there were like 30 of us trying to use one simplex frequency, but that was really fun. I think I ended up getting like 8 contacts in a half hour, so it like wasn't too bad. So that was probably my most interesting. But I'm learning CW now. It's really fun. So I really like doing CW, even though I'm not that great yet. But you know, I just get on there and go for it. And I also have been doing satellites recently, which is really fun. So probably favorite modes. I do SSP the most because I really like to do parks on the air. But I have also been doing CW and satellites. And I'm really hoping to get into summits soon. So yeah.
Much what you wish.
Yeah. So I think that's probably about it.
I don't think that new rig is portable.
Oh.
You go on the horse.
All right, Linda, well, first of all,
Haley, you're inspirational because you make us realize that we can do this stuff. We can learn really cool stuff. Sorry, you all got to turn your heads around, and I'm sorry I was on another meeting. But yeah, my ham radio journey has been very different. As many of you know, I just decided to get my license because I've grown up my entire life. Ford's been talking in the background of basically my entire growing up. For a long time, it was, yup, Dad's in on the radio, and it would mess up the TV or, you know, something like that.
No.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny as I was reading, and it's like, you can install filters to keep that from happening. We didn't do that. You know, and we knew which TV shows would get blocked out by, you know, that night's net or whatever. But it was just one of those things I was used to hearing people calling on the radio. And even now, he'll mention somebody. I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't that so-and-so that you used to talk to? And he's like, yeah. Poor Drew, I think for the first while I called him his father because that just happened to be a name I remembered, and I don't know why. But yeah, I was the last of my family, of the 4 of us, to get my license. My mother had gotten hers, and of course my brother had his, and then Dennis. And Dennis and Roger have been really pushing me to try to take my test. So I really enjoyed being able to put one over on Dad, you know, and take my test without him finding out. And thanks to all of you who helped keep the secret. We appreciate that. And yeah, so when you asked about my call, it was one of those things everybody said, oh, you should take your mother's call because Mom's was N2WGM. what a good mom. So I could always remember that. And I said, well, I'm going to just try the luck of the draw. Well, yeah, that's not always great. I ended up with KE2IVK. All I can see is ick. So I've put in for a vanity call and we'll either, hopefully it'll come up with moms. And if not, I had another one in mind too. So we'll see what we come up with. So yes, it's just, and what am I doing now? Okay. So yes, I realized after you get the technician license and you're only on, certain frequencies, next thing you know, everybody wants to talk to you on something else. So yes, I have my book to start studying for the next level. So there you go, Dad. Now you know. Well, thank you. It's good to see everybody. And it's great to be a part.
All right, I guess I'll tell you my story here, I guess. I can turn camera to work here. There we go. So I'm Drew, KA1M. I was first novice licensed in 1968 at 12 years old as WN2HGS. I then ended up going to New York City to take my general class license, and little moment where there was that, again, they had to do the 13 words a minute, and we were sitting in this big large room, and the FCC examiner was behind this big glass wall, and the whole bunch of us were sitting there taking the test, and all of a sudden, after about 5 or 6 minutes, the code started speeding up, and we started really writing fast, and then I look up, and my dad and the FCC examiner were sitting there laughing. He said that the FCC examiners, the 5 minutes was up, and so technically the exam was done, but he said, "Let's see who drops out first." And he started putting up the speed. I ended up actually going to RIT, K2GXT, right? So my dad and I would talk to, that was that time when you actually had to pay to call long distance. So they had a 2-meter station there, and I could talk to the repeater in Ithaca, and my dad would talk to the connect to Ithaca, so we would talk that way. My dad did have he was the Explorer Post head, whatever I call it, for the a lot of fans, Ed being one of them. Tom Aplenick at WH2IVD came out of that Explorer Post as well, and so a bunch of us sort of got going there. When I was up in Rochester, I ended up getting my advanced at the Rochester Ham Fest. I ultimately ended up in Boston, where I got my extra in 1980, and that's where I got my call sign. So it's not a vanity call sign; it's what it is. Most memorable experience. It's sort of, I don't want to say good and bad. I ended up doing some printed circuit layouts for 3 different Oscar satellites. First one was for Oscar 9. I did this is back before they had actual computers that could do the layout. Literally, I built myself my own little light box, and with a little black tape, would sit there and do the printed circuit layout. So they actually AMSAT flew me down from Boston to DC to meet with a guy that did the magnetometer for the Oscar 9 satellite. So I did that layout. Then they asked me to do a printed circuit layout for Oscar 10. Oscar 10 was a special, a new satellite that actually had its own rocket on the satellite itself. The way they call it a kick motor. So the launch vehicle would launch you into what they call a transfer orbit, and then once they, you separate from the main body of the rocket, you then fire the kick motor to get you up into a higher orbit. In this case, was going to lift the perigee, the closest, the lowest point in the orbit to the Earth. And they asked me to do the printed circuit layout for the kick motor design. Yeah, I didn't do the electrical design. I was just doing the layout for it. So I did the layout. You know, the satellite got launched. They then put in. They were planning on doing 2 or 3 firings of this rocket to get it in just the right orbit. And it was they had a sort of a digital countdown for this thing. So they had what they call a ship register, and they put in a number, and then it just starts counting down. So the rocket would fire for a certain period of time based on the number that they put in the ship register. Well, it was actually 2 different chips. They had the sort of the lowest 4 bits, and then the highest 4 bits. When I did the printed circuit layout, I did this. So what they wanted to do, this was going to be the most significant number, and then it now doubled the time. So for me, one of the worst ham radio moments was when I found out that it was my printed circuit layout that caused this. It turns out actually I ended up saving the satellite, and I'll tell you how. So what happened was when the satellite was let go from the launch vehicle, the ESA, the European Space Administration, did some outgassing on the main system, on the main launch vehicle, and it actually came back and hit Oscar 10 and actually put a small crack in the fuel line. So had they done the original firing for that particular period of time, it would not have raised the apogee sufficiently, and it would have Oscar 10 would have burned up. But what I did was I actually lifted it up much higher than they anticipated it. But so it actually it ran much longer than they ever thought it was going to have. Was going to be. So it was like.
You were well,
but they did not send me a certificate of thanks for that. My dad was K2ZRO, and he was also big into the Oscar in the satellites. I really enjoyed doing ARIS contacts. We've done a number of them here. A couple of people have actually been control operators. Gary, you were control operator for one of those, right?
Yeah.
And so I mean, I'm the director here, so I get to do a little bit of ham radio through we'll be doing that the balloon the high altitude balloon camp in about a month's time. So I do like CW. I do like the digital modes, and I'm hoping to get I can finally retire. Actually, spend a lot more time doing this. I'm very fortunate that my 2 daughters are licensed, and so is my wife. So I call her my extra wife because she's extra. And my brother is also a ham. He was WB2 DFY here. He now lives in Poland and is a huge DXer. My nephew, my brother's son, is also a ham. So there's a lot of that in the in the family. So anyway, that's again. This has actually been a great opportunity. Steve, thank you for a great idea for making this happen. I think we can all do it. And just so you know, this isn't usually the way one of our meetings goes. So.
Okay, yeah, I'm still really confused.
But
it just sounds like you guys just do like.
Well, okay. So my dad used to get the Scientific American magazine, and so when he first got it, he maybe understood 1% of what was in there, but you just kept getting it, and you start learning more, you start picking up more, and just ask questions. And when you're ready, or when you're almost ready, come and take the test, right, Bob?
This is the place for us.
So
Sure, you got any soldering projects? Alice is ready.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Bill.
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 So anyway, so thank you all very much.
Thank you.
August will be the picnic and, but let's, watch for, actually, I got an email from, Ed Russa, the BARA merch, or the BARA merch, store is up already.
Oh, wow.
So we'll send that information out on that. I'll let you know what's going on with the name tags, and we'll see you soon. And
Yeah.
maybe even on the air, right, Bob? Yes.
I did get one message we got to send on to
Yeah.
Yeah.